Ladies and gentlemen, boys and ghouls, to all of our non-binary friends, to everyone on the spectrum and in between, welcome to another episode of The Shutter Show. My name is Ken Stackman, and with me, as always, is David Marlowe, and also with him is his beautiful and gorgeous wife, Mrs. David Marlowe, as well.
Let me just Will
I
Smith
have a
this
name.
and just
Katie, how you doing today?
yes. Her name is Katie Sexton because she chose not to take my name, which is her own choice. God damn it!
I ain't no Mrs. Marlowe.
She ain't no held woman.
But I'm doing well, dear Kenneth. How are you?
I am fine and dandy like peppermint candy. How are you doing, Dave?
We're doing great. You might
Good,
hear
good,
our little
good.
baby puppy in the background. So
Yeah, we a couple
Baby
like
puppy.
yeah for anyone listening to this, like yeah we took a little bit of time because life happens when you're busy making plans, and we decided what, let's complicate our lives even more and get a tiny adorable puppy who needs to occasionally self-soothe in her crate while we do the things we need to do. So but yeah, Ken, now that we're back, what did we promise folks that we were going to do
Oh, we
after our
promised
previous episode?
we promised folks a double feature. We promised folks we were going to talk about two movies: The Taking of Deborah Logan and also Session 9.
Deborah Logan, a woman who is in fact held by Satan.
I mean, that's not wrong.
Is it Satan? I think it's just a snake god.
Well, I mean, it is a snake god, but also like the rules are kind of a little flexible. So,
It's Mephisto.
well, like, I mean, but how strong are the snake god rules, and how long are just the rules that you get when you go ahead and play with superpowers? It's really hard to say. This is always my problem with movies of a supernatural nature, is when you say you can only become indestructible and a omnipotent, all-powerful god by killing several children, and you get it by just sucking on one of them. I'm just like, so like, I just have questions about the rules. This is why I think one of these movies is very, very interesting, and why I think one of these movies is very, very, very fucking good.
do you remember, Ken? Ken, do you remember my review that I texted you?
I believe what I was told was one of these was scary and one of these was creepy, right?
I said one of them was not my fave, but very scary. And the other one I said was better, like really good, but less scary.
Yeah, no.
That's what I said.
I mean, like, both of these movies I think have a lot to offer. I would also understand where people become frustrated with these movies. That said, I still think at least one of these movies fucking slaps.
Yes.
And
I
hard.
think this, like, these are, I think this is a good pair of movies for us to do a double feature on, because they are both very opposite sides of the same coin, where one shows what some would say is too little and then the other shows too much.
No, 100%. And I think and they're both trying to walk very much the same plank, but one of them ends up doing it and is successful, and the other one almost does it, I think.
The
And
other one,
as a result,
I think,
yeah.
struggles and has the same problem that I believe a lot of found footage has, where it kind of stumbles and sometimes falls in the final act. They Stephen King it, is what they do.
I mean, yes, that is the best. That is the best. The best and most Stephen King thing possible is to have a great ending, almost stick it, then
And it
jump
turns
the
out it's a
shark.
giant space turtle.
Yeah, and then jump the shark, and then it turns out it's a giant space turtle. Everything catches on fire and everything explodes. Like that's how a typical Stephen King movie tends to end, which is why I would argue that Gerald's Game is maybe the best perfect Stephen King adaptation, even if it's not necessarily a good movie. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and ghouls, all of our non-binary friends, yes, that's what we're talking about today. We are talking about The Taking of Deborah Logan. We're talking about Session 9. That's the movie we're talking about today. And now I guess we're talking about it because we don't have
So
that
let's-
kind of transition.
So Ken, given that do we want to open this up with the shows too much, or do we want to open this up with the shows too little? Do we want to go out on a bang, or do we want to go out on a
I mean, I feel like most of the people who are listening to this podcast are people who have already seen this movie. So if you have not seen this movie, I would suggest you go out and see this movie. I suggest you go out and see both these movies. I suggest you see Taking of Deborah Logan, and I suggest that you see Session 9. However, if you are most of our audience, and I assume that you have seen them, and now you are watching this while you are working, you are trying to entertain yourself in some way, shape, or form, yes, I guess now is the time that we are going to spoil and ruin and say all of the things that happen in the movie that you have already seen, so you already know. So I don't know what I'm apologizing to, but I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do as the guy who hosts.
Well, that's Ken, that is how YouTube and the internet works now, is to combat the outrage. You have to at least put it out there. So you're like, well, I said it, so maybe fuck off.
Expect spoilers, people.
Expect spoilers, and if you get mad, fuck off.
No. That's where we're at. So David, do you want to tell our audience what kind of vaguely happens in this movie?
Wait, can I interrupt?
Yes.
I just want to say, I don't know how much I will be adding to this conversation. So I would like to say, boys, tell me about these movies.
Okay.
Maybe I can be like a bit of an audience member.
So let's open it up with subtlety. Let's start in a subtle manner with Session 9, which is nothing if not a subtle film. In this film, a crew of now I'm brain farting on the name of the material that I am
asbestos.
Yes, a crew of asbestos remediators take a job at.
You can't remember asbestos, but you remember remediators.
Yeah, I know. Ken, I yesterday I tried to open my door with like a regularly locked door with a door fob. Give me
fine.
I was very tired.
You do you.
But yes, the story follows a crew of asbestos remediators who take this very big job trying to clear out the asbestos in this insane asylum because the state wants to turn it into, office buildings or whatnot. And
how were they supposed to do it all that quickly?
Yeah,
like
what was at best a 3-week job, they take and saying we can do this in 1 week, and turns out shit goes sour, not quickly, but
it's creepy.
It's almost like there's an inner voice talking to the head of the crew, and paranoia begins to take hold, and then they start turning on each other as the stress begins to ramp up. That seemed about a decent enough. Is that good enough for you, Ken?
I mean, I would say yes. The movie is also very much about people at various points in their lives trying to find opportunities. I actually think one of the more so for what we can talk about, yes, if we want to take a long view of horror history, this movie belongs with The Shining and The Thing as one of those movies about paranoia and about not being able to handle the isolation of the work that you're doing. I think one of the things that's actually most interesting about this movie that probably doesn't get talked about too much is I believe this is So this is one of the very, very first movies shot in digital 24p, which is one of the very
Oh.
first movies that is shot digitally to look like film. So the
Mm.
difference between P and I when it comes to how digital photos are interpreted is interlaced footage, or I footage, is half the footage, and you'll see those lines, and then half the other footage, and they kind of, you record the top and the bottom, the top and the bottom. And if you look at a lot of reality television from this period, you will immediately recognize this interlaced top and bottom footage. This is one of the first progressive movies that is shot, which is where the entire image is being shot, which means you are getting an entire square of footage as that frame, as opposed to a top and bottom part. And
They have
this
to use two different cameras for the
No.
top and
no. All right. So what this so like the older cameras didn't have the processing power to process both the top and bottom of the image at the same time. So
Was
they
this
would
before
kind
Red?
of yes, this is completely before Red. This is in the Panasonic XL1 kind of environment. So what you are looking at is the option between the camera switching between the top and bottom interlaced images, and then what you could do, which was a progressive image, which is one full image, which is what you start seeing in the Red, which is what you start seeing with something like what's called a global shutter. But it starts to give that je ne sais quoi of a real movie and not just reality television. And yes, like this is one of the first movies, if not the first. Like I don't believe it's the first commercially available movie to be shot in 24p digital, but I believe it is in the top 10, top 15, somewhere in there. I'm sure there is some release schedule, but it is just very interesting that also this movie, which very much does a great job of using the way that footage will roll off and in a high resolution way. Like, so, okay, not to get too nerdy for everybody out there. There are in an image in color cinematography a certain number of blacks and whites that make up like all of the grays that are physically possible. And digital, for lack of a better term, lack of a better term, has a big ass. It's got a whole lot of blacks in subtle little increments. But once it starts to get into the brighter colors, it rolls off very quickly. So if there's like 10 layers of black, there's like 5 layers of white. So once it goes from dark to bright, it goes to bright very, very fast. And Session 9 uses that roll off in a beautiful way. It's very much is able to use the subtlety of the darker environments in order to make the scarier parts scary. There is a character in this movie who is terrified of the dark, and I believe him. I 1000% understand where this kid is coming from, where he's
Felt
like,
so bad
I
for him.
just don't like the way that this place feels like when the lights go off. And you're like, even though it's daytime, he goes, I don't care if it's daytime.
Well, most of the movie is spent there during the day, and when it really starts to feel claustrophobic is you know, obviously like when he's in the hallway running and the lights are turning off, but also when what's the character's name? Hank goes back to go get that in like that hoarded amount of silver dollars
In the wall.
Yeah.
and silver and like all that stuff that's in the wall turns out is actually being stored in the underbelly of the crematorium. So what he's sifting through is a bunch of just dead body dust.
Yeah.
As he's getting up all this silver, like it feels really claustrophobic, especially after he's done and he's trying to leave. But it does a really solid job with playing with just this beautiful natural set that the directors came across. And if I'm not mistaken, the directors were Stephen Geveden and oh gosh, what was the other director's name? Like, Stephen Geveden, he wasn't the director, he was the co-writer.
Adam Robitel directed Taking of Deborah Logan, and then Brad Anderson directs Session 9.
Yes, and then Brad Anderson and Stephen Geveden also, which I'm sure I'm decimating his last name. It's spelled Geveden. But he was he also played the character Mike. So those two wrote the script together.
Yes.
And the story of just kind of how they came across this set, which if folks who don't know where this is this is all shot on location at the Danvers State Hospital, also known as like the State Lunatic Hospital at Danvers, the Danvers Lunatic Asylum, whatever you want to call it.
The home of the lobotomy. Yeah.
Like the birthplace of the frontal lobotomy. To give you an idea of just how much dark history is in this place. And if you guys want to dive down a very fascinating rabbit hole, look up all these different videos about Danvers State Hospital, a hospital which, by the way, is no longer there. I believe it was
it torn down?
Yeah. So it was torn down.
Oh.
So it was
Does it say here?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember specifically.
Demolished in 2007.
Yeah, demolished in 2007. So very soon after the film was shot there. Wow. Gosh, it's.
What's there now? Do we know?
I don't know what was built there.
Foster's
I know that they like they were starting to knock it down to build eventually they were going to turn it into apartment buildings.
No, thank you.
But then I think there was a fire in one of the wards. The whole hospital itself is built to look like a bat, in case you were wondering just how fucking cuckoo bananas this place was. But like it like a lot of mental asylums, it started off with sort of their heart in the right place. But unfortunately, it began to dwindle due to what a lot of them dealt with, which was overpopulation.
Totally.
You just got more and more patients. There was more, and then more than they could pay for, more than they could pay to care for. All the while, you have these medical professionals who just don't have both the mental and physical capacity to care for all of these people. And so the level of care that these patients received got less and less. There are some actual patients that went on to not only flourish in this place, but also went on to work there. There's look several videos up there. Her name is not off the top of my head, but there's one patient that went on to actually be to live a very happy life after this. This is a hospital that had positive changes, that made positive changes in people, but unfortunately our mental health system in this country kind of brought it to a place where things did not end up well for it.
But it almost seems like it's another character in the movie.
Yeah, but sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, no, like this whole story itself is based off a true story, the Richard Rosenthal case. Now, Ken, do you know what the Richard Rosenthal case is?
I don't actually.
Richard Rosenthal. So yeah, upon deciding to actually write a horror film together, Anderson and Geveden found their first bit of inspiration in the Richard Rosenthal case, which is a grisly double murder that occurred in Boston back in the mid 90s. So not very long ago. Like he wasn't a senator or a congressman, but he was part of local government. And apparently he had gotten home and his wife messed something up with dinner. And what happened was he just snapped, murdered his wife, and then went upstairs and murdered their infant child, and then put them both on stakes in the backyard, and then carried on with his life like nothing happened. Like his whole brain blacked out everything that he had done. And he ended up going back to work for like a week before people realized that they hadn't seen them in a while. And so they'd send an officer there to do sort of a care check on them. And then he found their bodies in the backyard. And, you know, the rest is history. It's like this whole film is based off of the Rosenthal case. It is
But they were inspired by that, but they were also inspired by Danvers itself, right? Because they heard about that building, this asylum, and specifically wrote this to be set there.
Yeah, so it
filmed
started
there.
with them actually seeing the location.
Right.
So from what I understand, like they had to locate guides, and Arison and Givenen arranged a not entirely legal tour of the building. They turned to what are called urban explorers. Like, Ken, have you ever heard of these types of people?
Yeah.
So they hired a bunch of urban explorers to help them break into the asylum. So they went to the old patients wards. They went down the tunnels, which go all the way across the property. They went into some of the buildings where they were told that the lobotomies were performed. And a lot of the little details of the tour at the beginning of session 9 came out of that tour. But during production, it was just a massive disaster zone. So there were places where legally the crew could not go because it was so treacherous. Like the place was just falling apart. Like if you went up to this floor,
good times.
Yeah, like the area where, you know, where that chair is.
Yeah.
They weren't actually able to go down that hallway because the floor was in such bad condition that you would likely fall through it.
Were they legally allowed to film there if the
You know,
whole building is falling apart?
they got permits, but there were certain areas that they were not allowed to like let people into.
Yeah.
And so, but that chair that they filmed that is on the cover, that was already there.
Spooky.
So they just filmed it.
Spooky ooky.
It was spooky ooky, but not quite scary.
Right. Just a little creepy.
So yeah, I don't know. Ken, how did this film resonate with you? I felt sort of without startling my wife, I felt a strange kinship with Gordon. How tired he was.
I mean, session 9 to me is such a good examination of a thing that's scary, that's not new to you, that you don't give the respect it should have because it's not new to you. And that's what makes it scary. Where like there's you go to a new house and it's haunted and you're freaked out by it. And that totally makes sense to me because like all of this is new. But then there's also like the old copper mine that's by your house that's equally as haunted, that you are not as freaked out by because like, well, come on, I grew up by it. It can't be that bad. And actually it's just as bad, if not worse. And I think that's what this movie really, really gets right. It makes something that could both be something you could ignore because it's so pedestrian scary, but at the same time why that thing would be scary. And it makes scary to me what would make one of those places scary, which is the temptation that they give you rather versus what I find less scary about something like Taking of Deborah Logan, which is much more of a like, ooh, but what if this bigger thing took advantage of you and that was scary? And you're like, yeah, okay. but
Yeah.
I don't think
The-
it would
The
be.
scariest part of session 9 for me wasn't the end necessarily, or wasn't like the more uncomfortable part wasn't the end, or I felt the most uncomfortable and affected by the film is literally just that shot of Gordon in his truck getting ready to go back into his house,
It's
because that was
to
such
me,
it's such a relatable shot. You like you can just see how tired he is and how he's really just trying to rally himself to be with his family, like somebody he's supposed to want to be with.
to me, the problem is what's much scarier to me is how much I understand what Josh Lucas is doing, and I am willing to roll the dice on the dice rolling that he's doing. I am willing to ignore what is very clearly happening in a very creepy, cursed building versus what's happening with Deborah Logan, which to me is a much more, I'm making a contract with a demon in exchange for goods and services. Does that make sense? I'm much more willing to understand where Josh Lucas is coming from, where he's like, come on, this isn't real. Nah, there's no such thing as ghosts, as like you're stealing stuff from ghosts and those ghosts are then becoming part of you and ruining your life. Where with like Deborah Logan, again, one of my, like, I will say my primary problem with this movie, which I think is very good, which I think is one of the better found footage movies, which I think
agree.
is a movie that slow rolls what it's doing, a movie that I think that does not overextend its hand. My problem is it's a movie that says, and spoilers for anyone who is still listening to this podcast, okay, spoilers, 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 spoilers. Okay, are you happy? Are you not spoilers
Are you
now?
stated?
Okay. Yes. Are you not entertained? Okay, so I have said that we're going to. So here's my problem with the taking of Deborah Logan. The taking of Deborah Logan says very specifically that you will become a unkillable demon if you sacrifice 6 children. And this movie shows very clearly a woman who sacrifices 5 children and then sucks on a baby's head for a while. And then the very end of the movie is her being like, oh, look at me. I'm a demon who can't be killed. And my answer is, you didn't kill that demon. So could you have just sucked on all the kids' heads? Is that how this works? Is magic really this dumb? This is why I hate all these movies, because you guys made up all these rules. And now you guys are the ones breaking all these rules. I am sorry. No, this lady did not kill the kid. So it did not get to do the thing. So it's not the demon that you said it was. And if all it needed to do was likely suck on the head of kids like a lozenge, I think that's a way scarier movie than the movie that you guys
I mean, it was a
made.
cancer kid, so she didn't have most of her hair, so it was easier.
Well, but like, but yes, so fine, make that the movie. Isn't that the scarier part? That like
I found the more
doesn't-
fascinating part, and I think now we can start like going into a little bit more of the taking of Deborah Logan, and I'll let you. I guess you've summarized it about as well. I'll let you summarize it a little bit more here, but I think I found the more relatable character in this, and I found she strikes me as more the main character is Sarah Logan, Deborah Logan's daughter, and the movie is more like, I find that the snake demon thing is much more of a loud background noise to the real story, which is trying to dive into the theme of like, who suffers more, the victim of Alzheimer's or the people who care, or the loved ones who care for them.
I feel like that's what they really want to talk about, but then they're making a like, and my problem is this movie is then making a movie about this other lady who's doing all this other stuff and none of that matters. You know what I mean? Like that's like I 100% see that that's the movie that they started to make. I do not feel like that's the movie they went out and made.
You know, I think that's how it started, and it didn't go out on that same note.
Yes, no, I feel like the problem is like they found a way to start having that discussion with a found footage movie, and then they just didn't know how to finish that discussion in
Well,
any way,
Deborah
shape,
Logan-
or form.
Well, Deborah Logan even became a bit of an afterthought, literally as they're wrapping up the film. They're like, "What happened to her?" Oh, then Alzheimer's eventually took her and she died. But now here's
Yeah, I
the little
mean-
girl, and the,
yeah, I mean,
the
like-
process starts anew.
With bad wig.
Yeah, with the bag, or the fact that like
You're
they could
obsessed with
just
bad
I
wigs.
hate bad wigs, bad hair pieces, and that
It,
poor little
like you,
it
every time you point it out, it's
bothers
hilarious.
me so much. And that poor little girl with her weird ass, that half bald cap that they gave that poor little girl looked horrible.
Hair and makeup, you should be ashamed of yourselves.
Well, it's also stuff like when you're gonna have characters in situations like that, like they're gonna be deaf. Well, what do you mean? Well, if you fire a gun off in a tunnel like this, everyone's hearing is just gone for the rest of their lives now. And they're like, well, is that important? You're like, I don't know. I didn't set anything in a tunnel. You did. You know, and that's kind of the part that kind of bums me out about this is like I kind of think there's something kind of cool that you could kind of do. Like
I will say this movie has a moment that I genuinely respect and kind of laugh at a little bit, and that is when the character Gavin just says, "You know what? I quit," and then leaves, and then nothing
Yes.
happens to him, and then
No.
you never see him again.
No, that's completely valid. I think that's incredible. I love I love the moment with the whoever installed the La Cucaracha horn on the car. No notes. Perfect. That's incredible.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, chef's kiss. There's a lot of specific moments in this movie that I think are almost right. We should also say this as two white cis men who are ashamed for the terrible members of people who are like us. Bryan Singer is one of the producers on this, and fuck that
Is he?
guy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely fuck Bryan Singer.
Yeah,
Don't like
yeah. I mean, like, actually, don't fuck Bryan Singer.
don't fuck Bryan
but
Singer.
also
But if
fuck
he could
Bryan
go fuck
Singer.
himself, that would
Yes,
be great.
exactly. Yeah, no, I had to break this.
That
to
man
simply-
deserves no pleasure in
Yeah,
any
no,
way, shape, or
Bryan
form.
Singer sucks. But Session 9, on the other hand, fucking rules. It is one of the producers who have gone on to do a bunch of stuff for like for Breaking Bad and for Better Call Saul. That there's some of their go-to people. Peter Mullen, who's in Session 9 as the Scottish guy who's kind of a little bit over his head. You might recognize him from Children of Men. He's the guy who sells weed to Michael Caine and pretends to get him into the what's it called? Into the police state that they have in Britain, like yeah, where they have where they're holding everybody. He's one of the people from there. But yeah,
There's a
really,
sexton.
what?
There's
What?
a sexton
Where?
Oh
in
yeah,
Section 9.
Where?
Yes, no, yeah, Brendan Sexton the third.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yes. And
Yeah.
then,
There's
of course,
not many of us.
but we also like. I feel like we're glossing over the magic that is David Caruso.
I mean, you're not wrong. He does
Yeah.
so much that's good in this. There's so much cinematography that's great in this. There's so much good low budget stuff that's good in this. Like I love everybody who's involved in this. Yeah, I mean, like Session, like of these two movies, I would say Session 9 is the movie that everybody needs to see.
Ken, I
more
agree.
than-
Session
more
9
than
is
Deborah Logan.
definitely
Like,
Session
Deborah
9
Lo-
is
like,
definitely the superior.
Yeah, Deborah Logan is good. Session 9 is incredible.
Oh yeah. Here's the thing. I think if you understand immediately what movie you're hopping into with it, and I think you should always suspend that disbelief when you're walking into a found footage film. I think it's a glorious medium which has brought us many great things, but I think it comes with its own challenge of why the camera is there and why it stays there. And I think this the bare bones of the plot of The Taking of Deborah Logan does a very good job for being like, why is the camera still here?
Oh, completely. No, I think both of these movies do a great job of explaining why the camera is there and what it's doing and why it's sticking there. I think Uta Breiswitz's work in Session 9 is something that people should definitely look forward to. I love her use of zooms. It is so good. It is so good.
Oh yeah, could not agree more. Now we are coming to the tail end of this, or at least the tail end of what Zoom will allow us with our 40-minute limit. Ken, do you have anything else to say about either of these films?
I don't have too much to say about either of these other films, other than you should definitely go out and see them and definitely check them out. And also for next week, ladies and gentlemen, boys and ghouls, what we'll be watching is The Stylist. And if you haven't seen The Stylist, we're watching
What is The Stylist, Ken?
The Stylist. Oh, The Stylist is fucking rad as.
Am I gonna like it? Because sometimes Ken.
Yes, I am willing to bet that you are.
Sometimes your films have fish rape in them.
Yes, this
Not
one,
just that one.
I am fairly certain that this movie has 100% no fish rape. It is also a female director. It is also super awesome. It is also brand new to Shudder, and it also will be fantastic. David, do you have any pluggables for our lovable people to plug?
I mean, as usual, you guys can follow us on Shudder_show on Instagram, where I will post about all of the different films that we'll be discussing. And occasionally I've been terrible about kind of getting stuff on our stories just because things have been fucking crazy. But you can also follow me at _DW Marlowe, where I get up to my regular musings, woodworking, and occasional life moments. Hun, where can they find you?
Oh, I think I'm just at Katie Sexton on Instagram, but it's CADIESEXTON.
Yeah. This is where you can find all the pictures of our brand new puppy.
Yeah, it's really just pictures of.
So
Move your arm.
So if you want
There, she's
the
there.
cuteness, Winnie.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's you.
What about you, Ken?
You can find me on Instagram at Ken Stacknick at Instagram. You can find me on Twitter at Ken Stacknick, and you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Shudder Show at Shudder_show. Yes, and Scudder Show. Either way, it like we're easy to find. It's a whole thing. Check us out on the socials. It's a whale of a time. It's a great time. It's a fun time. My name's Ken Stacknick. I'll see you all very soon. This is an absolute calamity. Goodbye, good luck, and I hope all of you are doing well.
Thanks for
Also,
letting me hang.
you're welcome, but also go
Bye.
fuck yourself.
Goodbye.